Well, hello chaps and chappets, and welcome to a Kickstarter that everybody should... Yes, I'm doing a preview, first impressions and general overview of a game which is going to be on Kickstarter called Autofarmer. Now, you may have heard of this game before because if you live in the Czech Republic, it's already been published there. And so it's coming to Kickstarter very soon. I'll put a link in the notes below when it is actually hitting Kickstarter, and also a link to the Kickstarter page itself. And so obviously the publishers have had good success with this in the Czech Republic, and now they wish to open it up to the whole world. Basically, what is Autofarmer? Well, it's a 2 to 4 player game where players will have a garden full of plants, and they are trying to protect those plants against the other players to have the largest result yield harvest at the end of each round to give them points. And then after a number of rounds have been played, the game will end and the player with the most points wins. Now, let's quickly go through basically how the game plays. Oh, but before I do that, what are these plants? Wow, these plants are apparently, as the rulebook says, they are, get to the right page, cannabis, marijuana, ganja, reefer, and other plants like that. Now, you may be going, okay, we know where this game is going. Well, the rulebook does a good job of saying that, you know, these plants are not just used for those usual things you kind of like preconceived they are used for. They can be recycled into fuel, they can be made into paper, they can be also transformed into plastics, which can be modeled into cars or into other plastic things, maybe even bags. So yeah, this is a game about growing cannabis. I wonder if this is actually made out of it.
This video was made possible with the help of Game Toppers. Upgrade your gaming experience with a Game Topper.
So the gameplay is very, very simple. There will be a number of rounds depending on the number of players. So for example, if there are 4 players, there are going to be 4 rounds. And in each round, there are 3 phases. The first player will take 3 cards which will represent the 3 phases. So every time it's their turn, they will reveal the card to tell the players which phase it is on. These phases will correspond to certain things that cards can and can't do on those phases. So your first player is chosen. What happens next? Well, they will roll 2 dice twice. You will get 2 different results. So maybe you'll get a 9 and a 5. You'll take the larger number, and that'll be the number of seeds that you collect. So you'll collect 9 seeds. The smaller number is how many of these seeds will actually grow into plants. And so you will place out 5 plants face up, while the remaining seeds stay face down. Every other player will then do the same thing until everybody has a different amount of plants and seeds in front of them. Each plant has a value of, or weight of 40 grams, and this is what you're trying to save for the end of the round. but things can happen, and they actually will. Now this may be a good time for one of the players to sneak away and grab a pen and a sheet of paper, because you're going to need to keep score at the end of each round. So starting with the start player, they will reveal the first card, which will tell you which phase you're in. The first phase is the sprouting phase. The second phase will be the budding phase, and then the third phase will be the harvesting phase. After all three phases have played, that's when you'll total up how much of your harvest you have collected to get your score. So now our starting player will draw 3 of the 63 playing cards, which will be shuffled generally at the beginning of the game in the middle of the table and taken to their hand. They can then choose to either keep them all or maybe discard a few. So you may discard 1, 2 or 3. If you do, you replace those 1, 2 or 3. This is a one-shot thing that you'll do, and once that's done, you now go into the playing card phase. Each card is either an attack card or a defense card. An attack card may be some mites that you can put on someone else's plant, which will then eat those plants. And a defense card might be some spray, which can neutralize those mites. Every card has a little icon telling you how that card is played. There's a little information about what it does. It'll either tell you that this card will actually go onto a pot, or it will go into a discard pile after it has been played. There is also at the bottom 3 icons which will tell you which phases these cards can or cannot be played in. And it's always important to remember these when you're drawing your 3 cards, because if you can't play a card on a particular phase, especially the harvest phase, it's best if you discard it and draw another card beforehand. Now you're not obliged to play all the cards in your hand. You can save some for later, or you can just splurge and blow them all out. But whatever happens, after you've decided that you're not going to play any more cards, you end your turn and you look at your plants. If any of your plants have any diseases, either mites or mold on them, you will then have to carry out the effect that is applied with them. Mites will move on to your healthiest plant and then give it immediately 20 grams of damage, whereas mold will slap bang wipe out that plant entirely, which means that you remove that plant from the game and you move the mold onto, again, the highest grammed plant that you have in your garden. And then that's the end of your turn. You pass to the next player, they do the same thing until it comes back to the first player. The first player then reveals the second phase card, which would be the budding card, and you carry on playing. And again, you can save cards from round to round when you draw your 3 cards, so you may have more cards in your hand than previously, and you may have splurged them all, so you've only got 3 cards. So every turn you're going to be drawing 3 cards, playing as many as you want, and then seeing if any diseases or molds or whatever is going to destroy your plants. After the third phase, the harvest phase, is complete, any plants which have mold or mites are destroyed immediately. And that's when you count up how much recult you have from your plants. Now that will determine by what is left in your garden, but also there's the sickle card, which will allow you to harvest 2 plants entirely if you do it in the third phase. But if you do it in the first or second phase, you'll only harvest 20 grams from that plant, and you'll have to take the tokens as a marker to say that you have banked that and nobody can touch it. Although your plant has lost 20 grams of its growth, oh well, but at least that other 20 grams is safe. So all of this is totaled up, the plants that you have left and anything that you've harvested before the harvest phase, and that is your score. You write that down on a piece of paper and then the game goes to the next round. These 3 face cards are passed to the next player, and the same thing is repeated and repeated until all the rounds have been played and the player with the most score is the winner. So in summary, My first impressions of this game are that it's a very light, easy game to get into. The subject matter might put a few people off, but at the end of the game, it is a fun game if you are into slapping people in the face. This is a very take that kind of game. There's very little strategy, so don't look too deep at saving cards, because normally the cards you'll get, you will play immediately because, yeah, there you go, you take that. And there's a lot of interaction between the players. 2-player game, I wouldn't advise. 4-player game, definitely advise, because there is a lot of communication going on, because there's always one player who looks like they're going to win, and so you kind of gang up on that player. You know, they're the ones that keep getting all the diseases. They're the ones that are having to fight off you because it looks like they're going to win. And at the same time, you don't want to make it look too obvious that, you know, you don't want the other people to suddenly turn on you after the major component, you know, this is a king-making game of sorts, where you are totally in negotiation, and that's where the fun of the game comes if you like those types of games. As I said, very little strategy, so it's very easy to get into. You could play this with kids. The descriptions on the cards are very easy to understand. The rulebook is very easy to understand, although I've got the prototype and there are a few spelling errors at the moment, but they will be corrected. I don't know if the artwork is going to be upgraded or if there are going to be any extra components with this Kickstarter, but I do know that there is an expansion. The expansion includes some different plants, which will have different yields, different amounts of grams. Some of them have higher values, some of them have lower values, but they all have some kind of power as well. So some of them are feminine, which will counteract the masculine plants, which you can get in the game. Some of them will automatically harvest each turn, and some of them cannot be harvested, which make them a good target, but at the same time they are very high gram values. So there is a bit of variety in the game. These cards will actually replace 2 of your plants every round. One of the things that disappointed me is the fact that you don't keep your garden at the end of the round. Everything is cleared up and you kind of reset. You go back to the beginning. You roll the dice and you see how many seeds you have and how many of those seeds actually grow before carrying on playing. Another missed opportunity I feel is maybe a virus which will only move in certain directions. So there's some strategy in how you plan your garden, where you put your seeds and where you put your plants, because some of the seeds can actually grow during the course of the game. But apart from that, as I said, it's light. If you like Munchkin, this is your type of thing. If you like Baby Blues, this is your type of thing. And there you have it. That's my first impressions and the general overview of Autofarmer, which, as I said, you'll find on Kickstarter, which is coming very soon. Links in the notes below if you want to find out more. So I hope you found this video informative and pointed you in the direction whether Autofarmer is a game for you or not. If you've liked this video, please give it a like. If you found this game might interest one of your friends, share this video with them. And if you want to check out everything else that I've been up to, because I've been up to a lot of board game soundtrack making and Dungeons and Dragons soundtrack making over on Sirenscape, you can go and check that out at my website, boardgameseverybodyshould.com, where there is the Berkey and Badger Board Game Babble podcast, as well as other reviews from some of my friends. And if you read French, there's also French version of the reviews there. So thanks very much for watching, and please, please, please play nicely with each other and don't trample on those weeds.
Just sitting at the table next to Felicia.